anything that starts with always and never, with the exception of this statement, throw it out. We kind of look at Dave Ramsey as an emergency surgeon.
I'm not anti-Dave Ramsey.
No, I'm not either.
When you start collecting some money and having some money, and particularly once you're going into retirement, I think his advice is not quite spot on.
And where Dave Ramsey's advice comes in is when you're bleeding. We got to stop the bleeding.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that his advice on diet and nutrition is exactly what we need to be following, for our whole life, right? And he's not licensed to be able to provide this advice. My grandmother used to say, once I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken. But what if he's wrong? Just hang with me for a second. What if he's wrong? When would you want to find out that you need to make an adjustment? Do you want to find out now when you have time? Or do you want to find out in 20 years? Today we're going to be talking about the Dave Ramsey Roth advice that we saw recently that could seriously ruin your retirement. Now, we know that there are many Dave Ramsey fans, and so, we expect we're going to get a bunch of, interesting comments and stuff here. But after years of helping folks retire all across the country, we've realized that there's a lot of bad information on circulating the internet. And we understand the irony of you watching this on the internet, but the last thing we want is for you to get trapped in some of these mistakes. So to make sure you've got the best advice possible for a sustainable retirement, we're going to expose some of this advice and show what you should actually be doing as you prepare for retirement. Let's get into it. So there are quite a few fun Ramsey-isms that I think I want to talk about today.
Okay.
And I will preface by saying we kind of look at Dave Ramsey as an emergency surgeon, in my opinion. Everyone's like, oh, he's got some good advice. Like, okay.
And I'm not anti-Dave Ramsey.
No, I'm not either.
I think Dave Ramsey's advice to a lot of people is solid. Mm-hmm. Okay. But when you start collecting some money and having some money, and particularly once you're going into retirement, I think his advice is not quite spot on.
And this is why I love the idea of the emergency surgeon, right? Mm-hmm. There's something that they're very good at. You need them in a specific situation. And where Dave Ramsey's advice comes in is when you're bleeding. We got to stop the bleeding.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that his advice on diet and nutrition is exactly what we need to be following, for our whole life, right? And so the idea is, look, Dave has built a great business on, getting a certain message out and by getting attention. That's what his comments do, is they get attention. Now, we need to take them all with a grain of salt and understand that he's not licensed to be able to provide this advice. And so he has different rules than professionals do.
That's true.
In these situations, okay? And so one recently that we saw, which is really interesting, is, he's saying that Social Security plus a 401k is going to be, quote, not enough in retirement. That's extremely vague advice. I know some people with some 401ks that are going to be more than enough for their retirement.
Sure.
They're never going to touch it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, the question is, do we want to take general advice and apply it to a specific situation, or should we have personalized advice to our situation?
Absolutely.
It's like, no one should drive motorcycles. Okay, well, you shouldn't drive a motorcycle at night when it's raining without a light on. That doesn't mean everyone should not drive a motorcycle,
sure,
right? And so, this is how we need to be thinking about some of this information. The other thing that I think is challenging about Dave and some of his advice is that he uses really, really particular and I think unhelpful assumptions in a lot of his stuff. CDs, I don't know if you've noticed, CDs are not paying 12% anymore. Okay.
Anymore.
And mortgages aren't 18% anymore.
Yeah.
Now, there were for a period of time, but things are different, right? And so the key is generalized advice from the internet does not translate to good, personalized, actionable planning. And I think that's what we need to think about. The other one that's really a challenge right now is, the long-term rate of return assumptions that he uses for, mutual. He conflates mutual funds with the stock market, which is another issue. Is like between 10 and 12%. Okay, great. We can cherry pick data all we want. We don't get to use those kinds of percentages when we're making projections. Right. So you shouldn't use those assumptions in your long-term retirement planning, I think is really the big idea here. And so, coupled in with this is some of his guidance about Roth conversions, which is the same type of thing. It's cookie cutter advice. We don't need cookie cutter advice. We need personalized advice. And so, adding all of these together, this compounds a lot of bad ideas compounded together. You take all of this and try to apply it to your retirement, we can have some frankly, really bad projections, and this could be damaging to your retirement.
Sure.
If we add all of these together. And so what Dave is saying about Roth is that you always choose Roth. This is Dave's idea. Always choose Roth.
You never always say anything.
Yes.
Or never, always, never. No, you never say never.
Anything that starts with always and never, with the exception of this statement, throw it out. Right. And so this idea is, he's saying, well, taxes are always going to go up in the future. Well, some of our clients that are in their peak earning years, we can defer tax using a traditional, and then we can pay later at a lower rate. What Dave is assuming is that there's no one helping them do the planning.
Yeah.
And I think that's a faulty idea. He has a whole business where he sells leads to financial advisors to help people do their planning. Mm-hmm. So he should know that there are people that are helping folks with this. And some of our clients that are charitably inclined or may have real estate or business or other investments, we can even defer tax into a 401k, convert that to Roth, and pay 0% if we do good planning. Mm-hmm. And so this is a place where, if you follow Dave's advice, you might be paying in the 15, 24, 28% average effective rate, depending on your tax bracket. And that's, whatever that is way more than what you'd get if you were planning with us. Right. And so this is a huge problem. And so, we need to really rethink the way that we get advice from the internet, in my opinion. Sure. We need to change from getting cookie cutter advice to getting personalized, actionable advice. There are always exceptions to these gurus' rules.
Yeah, there are very few just generalized rules. You have to look at your specific situation and get what you need.
This happens a lot in your world, Todd, on the legal side of things. The generalized advice that people get is that they need a will and they can use any power of attorney document, or, everyone needs a trust.
Yeah. The only way to avoid probate's with the trust. Not true. And if you don't have minor children, a will is terrible. So it's just, I get it. It's so frustrating, and people just think they're right. And there's professionals that, typically non-attorneys out there telling you this stuff. And just like this, Dave Ramsey is not a financial advisor. No.
These generalized ideas are going to, if you apply them, are going to cost you money. Mm-hmm. In some cases, lots and lots of money. Mm-hmm. Could be hundreds of thousands of dollars if we get it wrong.
Sure.
But you know what? The advice is free, right? You got it on the internet, so you didn't pay for anything personalized there, right?
You save some money.
You save some money, as we say, Todd.
Save a buck, lose a fortune.
The other thing, Todd, that I want to talk about is the implications of getting this wrong from a tax perspective could be hundreds of thousands of dollars over your retirement. Or the other way to think about it is taking bad advice, misapplying advice. This could delay retirement by years.
Yeah. We see people work out of fear when they really did not have to. Mm-hmm. They could have been on retirement enjoying life, but they go to work because they think they're not ready.
I had this in a meeting just the other day. Mm-hmm. The sweet lady had been working hard, saving very diligently. She looks across the table at me as I'm going through the software and showing her how things are. She goes, "So you're telling me I could have retired a few years ago?" Yep. Yeah, you could have. But now's the next best time, right? And so these might seem like small things. These might seem like small errors. But if we get them wrong over a long enough period of time and we add them all together, that can compound to not having the retirement that you want, dramatically overpaying on taxes, maybe to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and having to delay much longer than is necessary. Mm-hmm. So we want to try to save you from that. And this is why we need to talk about how to do this right.
Well, I know Dave Ramsey seems very convincing. Mm-hmm. Okay, he is right about a lot of stuff.
He may be wrong, but he's never in doubt. I mean, it's
I didn't
true.
say that. He is right about a lot of things. Okay, but this issue is just not.
Well, is anyone right about everything?
No. Even me.
Yeah,
I'm not right about everything. Close, but but he can be very convincing, and take him for what he's good at, but realize there can be a problem with this information.
This is a little throwaway clip, but we could use this. You know, my grandmother used to say, "Once I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken." So let's give some specifics, kind of like case study style, Todd. Let's talk through how a couple of these misconceptions can add up together and how dramatic this can be.
Well, people are told when you retire, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Well, number one, if between now and then Congress raises the tax brackets, that's not true.
That's true.
But I know a family, my in-laws actually, they are making more money now. They are in a higher tax bracket now, not working, just getting retirement. They are in a higher tax bracket now than they were when they worked. And I'm sure they never thought about that. And knowing that and anticipating that can make a world of difference in your planning.
And again, the one-size-fits-all planning doesn't fit anybody.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to talk about how they continue to add up together. You know, so imagine, you know, you're earning, $250,000 before retirement. That puts you pretty squarely, if you're married, that puts you squarely in the 22% tax bracket. And so if you're paying the tax on that money now, yes, it can grow tax-free if you have it in Roth and you follow the rules. But what if you're charitably inclined? Or what if you're able to save the difference between what you're paying in tax and, you know, what you would be able to save if you were contributing to a traditional 401k? You know, that 22% bracket, if you're maxing out your, husband and a wife or spouses are maxing out their contributions, that's approximately another, maybe that's $10,000, $15,000 a year of extra money that you could be saving. What if you reinvested that and then paid the tax? This is where, and folks go, "Oh, I've never thought about that." This is one of these areas where, the nuances really can add up.
This next point is one thing that you're kind of big on is we're in the longest bull market in history.
So, large cap U.S. stocks, U.S. companies have outperformed international companies for the longest period ever. Outperformance of U.S. stocks has never been like this in history.
And so people probably think this is the norm. Oh, the stock market's always going to go up. Well,
it felt like that in the late 1920s too.
Sure.
And so we really need to have more reasonable assumptions when we're talking about these things. The long-term average for stocks is closer to between 8 and 9% on average, depending on the sample that you're looking at. And so what I want folks to think about is, if you use Dave's projections 12% a year versus mine, which is 7 to 9%. Which one of these is going to paint a rosier picture of retirement? If things go well, great. We'd be happy if Dave's right. We want Dave to be right. But what if he's wrong? Just hang with me for a second. What if he's wrong? When would you want to find out that you need to make an adjustment? Do you want to find out now when you have time? Or do you want to find out in 20 years, oopsies,
I ran out of money. And have to go back to work. Yeah. So better safe than sorry. Okay.
That's
better a lower. And when you run these illustrations, you always underestimate the interest rate, what they're going to make, and you overestimate inflation just to be safe.
This is a way that we stress test your plan. And look, I get it. I'm the no fun guy. Okay, I understand that. That's my job. But when things go poorly, I'm the one that you call. Because I have 12 different scenarios of how we're going to handle this, if these kind of things happen.
And past performance does not indicate future results, but we have people come in saying, "You told me this, but we're doing much better than that." And we're like,
just had one of those,
okay.
And it's like, look,
good.
I get it, but we've got to be conservative. I'm always trying to talk folks into we've got to be more conservative. We just need to meet your goals. We don't need to set records. We just need to meet your goals. So you can see that just blindly following, anybody's advice, that's general cookie cutter advice, including Dave Ramsey, could be a path to destruction in retirement if a lot of things don't fall into place just the right way. And so if you want to see exactly how your retirement looks and understand whether you're on the right track, click the link below and we'll get that video out to you. We've said this a few times, but there are some ideas that Mr. Ramsey has that have some merit, okay? We want to take the ideas on their face, not take what everything that someone says and apply it to our situation immediately. There's a place for Roth IRAs and 401ks. There's a place for traditional IRAs and 401ks. What we really advocate for is having some money in each of those tax types, including non-qualified accounts, right? Because we don't know, anyone who's intellectually honest, we don't know what the future tax rates are going to be. And so if we want to be able to manipulate the tax system in the future during retirement, we want money in each bucket so that we can have the lowest possible effective tax rate. But that is something that we have to personalize. Todd, a lot of folks are comfortable with this idea of diversification in their assets, and everyone thinks they're diversified. Hardly anyone is. That's a really? Video for another day. Most folks think that diversification is having a bunch of different funds. That's really not what it is, because with the scenario we saw today, we talked with some folks. They've got 25 different funds. They all own 99% of the same stocks.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
So they're just paying more money to have more stocks. That's not diversification. What diversification is having different asset classes or different sectors represented. Well, the same thing needs to happen with a tax efficient retirement plan. We need to have money in different account types. Different assets need to be in different account types. Sometimes we call it tax bucket diversification, or different tax type diversification, or asset location. You might hear these different terms from different places. And so what this does is this enables us to do what is technically called tax bracket arbitrage. Let's say tax rates go up in the future for a period of time. And where the nuance comes in here is that this stuff is not static. The tax brackets are not going to be the same for all of your retirement. The tax laws are going to change. At the time of this recording, we're in a period where the tax laws are changing. And so we're having these nuanced conversations with our clients. And so, there may be a period in time where, the tax rates are a little bit higher. Well, we can pull from Roth or from non-qualified accounts to keep the tax bracket low. Well, let's say that the tax rates drop. Well, maybe we'll take from traditional IRAs at that point, but a really well-designed plan is not going to have just one size fits all. Now, if you get lucky and you get everything into Roth, and great, okay, but did you pay more tax along the way? That's what we want to work through, and that's what we want to figure out.
Sure.
If you're going to use a slightly cookie-cutter plan, the way that we begin to think about it is anything 22 to 24% tax bracket and up, that would include 30%, 37%. We want to defer that tax. Most likely we'll be able to convert that later as a Roth conversion. But if you're in the 10 to 12%, maybe 15%, depending on the time that you're viewing this recording, well, that would be a time we would consider contributing directly to Roth, okay? Now, again, that's not specific advice, but if you're unwilling to get personalized advice, that's a little bit more nuanced than what Dave is suggesting. But if we get this wrong, this can delay retirement or can lower your retirement income if that just all gets eaten up by taxes. And so we want to make a personalized plan. We want to figure out exactly what you should be doing when, so that you're not overpaying in retirement. So, Todd, I want to do another case study. I like doing these. I think these are helpful.
Okay.
Someone that I was visiting with recently, and this was a person who does a lot of stuff themselves. They're in their early to mid 50s, husband and wife, both make great money, advanced degrees, very intelligent folks, have done really well on their own, but they want to retire early. And so they came to us wanting to know, hey, are we on track? Where should the rest of our contributions be? When do we start doing Roth conversions? These were some of their questions. We weren't really worried about running out of money in this particular situation, but in the rest of our working years, where should we be contributing? Now, what I told them is different than what they've heard from really any other advisor, and they've interviewed multiple advisors. A lot of advisors were telling them, go all in on Roth because we've got a long-term, tax liability here. So at least they got that part right. Now, when we dug into their scenario, they had a pretty good diversification of asset types. They had a good chunk in non-qualified taxable accounts. They had the bulk of this is like a lot of our clients, had the bulk of their assets in IRAs, and then the rest, they had started to do a little bit of Roth. So it's about $500,000 in non-qualified accounts, $1.5 million all in IRAs, then another $500,000 in Roth IRAs. So they've saved well, been very diligent. They're not going to run out of money, but they don't want to get killed on taxes. And so their question was, in our last years of working, where should we be contributing? What account should we be using? One advisor told them, go all in on Roth and even do the mega backdoor Roth, just sock as much money in there. That way, more of that money will be tax-free. Another one said, don't even contribute anymore, do something else. I said, well, I think that's a little bit much. And so when we really dug into the details with them, we found what made sense was to contribute enough to get the match in their 401ks. And she had a 457. So we had the ability to pull money out from that earlier without penalty. But the balance, anything for their situation, anything above their match, we were just going to use that money to actually pay for Roth conversions. What that ended up yielding when we did those projections was that they would be able to retire earlier, save an additional $1 million in tax over their lifetime versus doing the mega backdoor Roth, and then having plenty left over for their legacy. Wow. And so what we did is we created a custom plan based on their unique situation. We didn't use a cookie cutter approach, sure. And we even created something that an idea that no other advisor had told them, which is to do some Roth conversions earlier on. Why they didn't, I think that's straightforward, but we were able to save them quite a bit of money in that scenario. And so to us, that was kind of a common sense strategy. So we've talked about why some of Ramsey's Roth advice could ruin your retirement and how to really rethink and restructure your plan for maximum tax efficiency. Now, as you saw with our client, there are a lot of other options you can take advantage of, to secure your retirement and really create a customized plan for your unique situation. However, it's important to know that these strategies only work if you have a full picture of your scenario and exactly what tools are at your disposal in order to, take advantage of customized planning. So if you want to know exactly where you stand for retirement, click the link in the description, fill out the questionnaire that we've created. Now, afterwards, we'll send you a personalized video breaking down your data with some actionable ideas to strengthen your plan. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Thank y'all.